in the
I
edition.
really, I love this. This is an eagle, right?
It's more complex. It makes you think of an eagle, but at the same time, it's hybrid. It could be also a, you know, the bird that eats fish and that dries his wings like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, cormoran. Uh, so, but you can see it also as something almost political in the sense that when I did my show with Murat and Pilevneli and with Aslı in Istanbul, it was important to show this larger version because it's nature, but it's also a story about power.
Exactly.
It's a story about history. So
Germany, Belgium, all these
Germany,
countries.
Belgium, America, Russia, the imperial eagle of Rome, but also the black bird that's covered with oil when it comes from a polluted beach. So there are pieces that are, and you see, for instance, in the book La Traversée, the orange book,
Mhm.
see the cover as in fact the wing of the sculpture. Do you recognize?
Yes, yes.
So it was important for me to show that piece in Istanbul for the first show with Pilevneli because it's a very important piece. A little bit like when Jan Hoot did his show in Ghent with difficult contemporary art. I think it's also, I find it wonderful to show each time I've done a show in Istanbul, it's been a real show.
I know. I was there.
Yeah, it
That
was
was
not.
the day I
Yeah,
met you.
yeah, it were not. It were not leftovers from a show in New York. You understand the difference?
Yes, yes. It was a beautiful show. I cannot forget. I can even
Yeah.
tell you the positioning of
Yeah.
the sculptures.
And so the thing is, we also made a book that I haven't got yet in Paris, but it's gonna come. It's slow. It's slow to get here, but it's very important to also to make real shows. You understand?
Yes.
Not a show where you've got the same piece repeated 15 times, smaller, bigger for clients. No, it's important to make real shows that make a real difference. And that people, when I saw Cy Twombly's show in Paris in the 80s, today I can still remember his show. I still I still remember his show. And if I don't remember every piece, I still remember the emotion of the show. I still remember how it shocked me when I saw Joseph Beuys for the first time, when I hated it. I hated the shows that I saw. And it took me maybe 10 years before suddenly understood how important those shows were. And other shows I fell in love, but they were always between brackets real shows. They were always real projects. I know when I saw in Istanbul at the Yerebatan, uh, Olafur Eliasson had installed, Rosa Martinez had installed just a line of water mist in the back of the cistern. It was just mist, colored mist. Olafur wasn't a star yet, but I saw the mist, and the moment I saw the mist in the Yerebatan, I said, this is just unforgettable. So more than to think about the market, more than to think about the dealers and the collectors, this is Peter Marino, is a big collector in New York, who's an architect with Peggy Leboeuf. This is Emma, who takes care of me at Perrotin in Paris and who's been taking care of me for a long time. the most important thing is to make real shows. And so I'm here also, this is an image of family in galleries. You know, you see Otoniel with Murakami and myself on the, here on the left hand, on the right hand corner. On the back, Perrotin, Pharrell Williams, Daniel Arsham, Sophie Kahl, and so on. These are, you know, these are also families you have to create. But now maybe I went too far from your question, but
no, we are turning around. You know, we are always within the same.
But the thing is, what I mean is the most important thing is to make real shows, and that's the same thing for a dealer, for a curator, for a, you know, a writer. I know that the world today wants product. The world today wants product. So when I look at Netflix, because of the lockdown, I've looked at Netflix and I say, oh my God, there's so much product. There are only a few films.
Exactly.
The films that make you think and that make you hurt and that are shocking you and that are surprising you and that make you change your mind. There's so few. And most of it is product. It's derivative product. So it's just like they're formulas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult, I think, in today's market and in today's art world to because today's art market is brutal.
Very much.
Brutal. You see all these artists, they're around Perrotin, and Perrotin, here you see his gallery in New York,
everywhere.
Shanghai, Seoul, Tokyo, Paris. You have, Emmanuel has a gallery that's worldwide, and he's very smart in the sense that today with lockdown, it's wonderful because the business in Asia can now start to pick up when New York is totally down. And Paris can work with the local market while the people from London do not travel to Paris. So I'm sorry, he's been very smart to be global, but it naturally puts an enormous strain on your mind and on your physical. You know, you've got to run a business with hundreds of people, lots of artists, lots of, you see here are also a few shops. He's got a few shops. So for young collectors, and Emmanuel is a totally different dealer from Robert Miller. He's a totally different dealer from Transit, who are, you know, making a business from their house, living with nothing, inviting your artist. So they're very different types of art world. So
one question, do you try to become friends with your collectors, or not try, but are you friends with your collectors? Are you friends with your dealers? Is it a good idea to be friends with dealers?
But no, I think here, this is Peter Marino, the guy with this leather jacket and his hat.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the greatest collectors of Renaissance and Baroque bronzes, from 17th, 18th century bronzes. He collects Andy Warhol and Isnik tiles. He has collected my work in depth. he has placed my work with lots of brands like Chanel. He's a collector that, in a sense, is as much interested in history as I've been when I was a kid, you know. So I know only few collectors of mine. In fact, I'm very shy. When you bring me to a dinner, never serve me soup.
Why?
Because when I have soup, I tremble so much I cannot eat my soup. I trembled so much, so it's very difficult for me. I like meeting people, but Emmanuel, for instance, Perrotin, is not a friend. It's not a friend. He's somebody I'm close to, I know, I work with. But this is very personal, but he's not somebody I go and drink something with. Somebody as Almin, you know, but that's too personal. But you know, it's some people are. He's a great. He's a wonderful dealer because he's got a million ideas every second, and that's the important today. You've got to have new ideas
and means to realize them.
No, the means you can find them.
Really?
But the thing is, today, naturally, we are in a different world. Because if you would have asked me to give this talk, to have this discussion with you 8 months ago, it would have been a very different discussion. I would have talked about global expansion, about the link between galleries, local markets, international markets, the art fairs, the bookstores, the web designs, all these things, that global thing. But the problem is, today...
We're local.
Huh?
We are locked to local, whatever we have around.
Yeah, but at the same time, I have never talked to, I don't know how many people are following this. How many are we, 30 or 20, or how many people are following?
I don't know. I expect about 40.
Yeah. So I had never spoken with people in Istanbul. So
I know.
The thing is, that's where the genius has to come in. That's where the genius has to come in. And I believe that Emmanuel still can be that type of genius. He already had started with his expansion on internet, with his local teams, but you need now somebody who understands how the world is changing and how you can adapt your business model and still make your artist live, eat, survive, make new work, protect. So it needs a genius to come up with all these ideas.
Exactly.
And I know artists themselves for the last 20 years have been also changing. Olafur, or they have their own gigantic studios, they've got their own business models, they've got, they've evolved into some kind of multinational type of structures. And I think that, so artists like myself who are still very romantic, in the sense that they want to make their work, that they want to touch it, that they need to also see how they can live in this new climate. But I know that Emmanuel is somebody, for instance, who can come up with new ideas, and we only have to hope that he will that we'll survive this complex time.
This in the cistern,
Yes.
your work at the Biennale,
Yeah.
Istanbul
That was at the
Biennale.
Biennale. But for instance, I don't have any good images. You know, you see the torsos in the water, the flower here in the bottom. You see the flower torsos. There's several flower torsos. But at the time, I was still so poor that I couldn't afford to have a photographer shoot. So there, we have some images, but not a lot. So if anybody in Istanbul has images, I'm happy to yeah.
I will find out. Yeah. This is beautiful.
This is right now in Rome, because in Rome I have now a show with 50 sculptures, pieces from the 80s till today. The show was 2.5 years of preparation, but we are closed because of lockdown. Same thing for the show in Paris at Perrotin, 2 years of preparation, but we are under lockdown. So it means that there's a gigantic, so I'm working on a book, I'm working on a movie, a short clip, maybe 9 minutes. During the quarantine, I did a movie about a show I did in the 90s called In Quarantine. I made, you can find that on YouTube.
I will.
I made this short movie, 7 minutes, about how I made a show in the Mediterranean Sea in an abandoned quarantine because of during the period that we had another epidemic that was AIDS in the 80s. And just to tell you that we now have to come up with solutions. You have a fantastic show in Rome. Nobody will see it. Very few people. So maybe in December, if it opens up, or in January, it will open up and people will come and see it. So it's a new world.
Exactly. But you know, you're busy. You're talking with us.
Yeah, and we have this. This is an image that nobody has seen so far. Just 2 minutes from Paris, in Montreuil, with Jean-Michel Ottoniel, who is also an artist. We are making a new space that's called La Solfatara.
Both of you?
Huh?
Both of you?
The two of us. And Jean-Michel had also shown at the first Biennale in Istanbul, when he was shown together with Damien Hirst. He has shown at what's the name of the big palace on the water, the 19th century palace in Istanbul?
Dolmabahce?
He has shown in Dolmabahce, has done a show in Dolmabahce, and he has worked a lot around Pierre Loti and Istanbul and so on and so on. And we now have been working for the last 2 years on this new space in Paris. And it's the first time I speak about this, but it's a 4,000 square meter space. And it will be our studios, but also our archive. There will be the offices. I'm installing a kiln, because for the first time in my life, I will have my own studio. Because until today, I've been making my works wherever I can. So now I cannot go to the studio in Den Haag or the studio in Belgium. So I'm stuck in Paris. So that's why I'm making movies and books. But I hope that in a few months, we will be able to start working in the studio in Montreuil. And the idea is that it will also become a space in which we can do projects with other people, dancers.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And so it may also become a place where if a scholar would like and come and study my drawings because he wants to make a book, he could. There's going to be a small apartment, there's going to be a cafeteria, there's going to be a bookstore. For the time being, it will be only on private, it will be only visited privately. And for the time being, nobody knows about it, but now you all know about it. But it's a project I think we want to work on for the next, if we're lucky, for the next 10 years. But it's a gigantic risk also because of what's happening in the world. But at the same time, it's what artists have to do. We have to take risks. We have to try and invent something new. I'm like the gambler. I always put all my chips on the new thing. It means the show in Rome. I've put all my money, in a sense, and all my energy. There is no sponsorship, not of the government, not of the galleries, not of sponsors, in the production of my work. I've always tried to, for 90%, I've tried to make the work with my own money. And it's still the money that's linked to the first painting I sold on the street when I was 11. Because what did I do when I painted in front of the shop of the guy who sold drawing paper? And when I sold the first painting, what did I do with the money?
You bought new canvas paper.
I bought the biggest box of oil paints that he had in the store. And in fact, today is the result of each time pushing, taking risks. Making a show in Istanbul was a gigantic risk. It still is a gigantic risk. Making a show for Rome and making sculptures that are 5 meters high, and it's a gigantic risk. Changing the subject of my work and suddenly making these gold pieces, it's a risk. But that's what we artists have to do. We have to take risks. We have to just try and invent a new world. And I hope we'll have fun doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, as an artist, I mean, you're already a risk taker. Choosing such an uncertain, career. I agree with that.